Let's talk about support paragraphs. Whenever you are writing an argument essay, and it doesn't matter what type of argument essay, anytime you have a claim to prove, you need to make sure that your support paragraphs are robust enough to prove your claim. I'm going to demonstrate what a poor paragraph and a strong paragraph look like by looking at the United States Post Office synthesis prompt. If you'll recall, the prompt essentially asks, should the post office be changed to meet the needs of a modern society? This was my response to that question. The USPS is a unifying force in the United States, but it needs to be restructured to stay relevant in the 21st century. By expanding its services and consolidating its resources, the USPS will continue to be a positive contributor to the United States economy and the United States society. So, in this claim, I have answered the prompt that it needs to be restructured. So that is the first part of my claim. Then I state my two main reasons: expanding its services and consolidating its resources, which establishes the argument I'm going to develop. Notice that in this case, my claim is 2 sentences. That is okay. If you can make it 1 sentence, great, but 2 sentences is acceptable. So here was my first stab at my first support paragraph. I think the post office needs more services because FedEx is better. In source A, Flying Like an Eagle, David Stone says that Richard Hornack says that it's counterintuitive to add service when you're losing money, but people have less faith in the system precisely because of spotty service. By having more service, I think people will be more likely to choose the USPS. In source C, Postmaster General John E. Potter in 2010 said, "At the end of the day, I'm convinced that if we make the changes that are necessary, we continue to provide universal service for Americans for decades to come." Ed O'Keefe in source C said, "Potter also wanted more flexibility in the coming year to set delivery schedules. In my opinion, these changes are good." So let's break down the paragraph and see where it can be improved. For one thing, I'm going to take out any time I say I think or in my opinion. I know this is my paragraph. I'm the one who wrote it. I know your paragraphs are your thoughts and your opinions. By including phrases like I think, you are making yourself sound uncertain. I think my claim's correct. No, just state it boldly. The post office needs more services because FedEx is better. So if you have that habit of introducing your opinion in that kind of almost apologetic way, I'm sorry, but this is what I think, now is the time to break that habit. Now, one thing I did do in this paragraph that is good is I mentioned my main point. So it is clear that this paragraph is about my first point in my claim, that the post office needs more services. That's good. I also have in this paragraph 2 sources. I refer to source A and I refer to source C. So I'm using the texts as I should. I have 2 of the 3 that are required, but this is the problem. The only commentary, the only explanation I offer is because FedEx is better, people will be more likely to choose the USPS, and these changes are good. When you look at a support paragraph, if all I see is sources, that means your argument isn't strong. I've read the sources. The AP readers have read the sources. I do not need you to quote the sources. I need you to tell me why these sources matter. So let's look at my revised paragraph. One of the biggest challenges facing the USPS in the 21st century is the availability of alternative methods of delivering mail of all sorts. People use email for letters and services like FedEx for deliveries because they are faster and able to deliver on days that the post office does not, like Sundays. By expanding their services, the USPS can meet this challenge on an even field. As Richard Honak points out, people don't like to use the post office because of spotty service due to current delivery practices and hours. Source A. By expanding their delivery window to earlier and later hours, as well as to full weekends, people will be more likely to choose the USPS. One example of this is the self-service shipping stations available in many locations. If a person has to send a package, they don't have to wait for the post office to open at 9 a.m. They can prepare the package for shipping at 1 a.m. if that fits their schedule better. It's this kind of change that Postmaster General Potter in 2010 said would allow the USPS to continue to provide universal service for Americans for decades to come. Source C. He recognized the need for the USPS to adapt to the needs of the American people it serves, people who work at all hours and rely on the digital marketplace. Without flexibility, the USPS won't survive. Source C. The flexibility this kind of restructuring would bring can help the USPS survive into future decades. Now, just looking at this paragraph is longer than my original paragraph. However, length does not necessarily mean better. Let's look at the way I have structured this paragraph. So first of all, notice I don't have any think or in my opinion, much stronger. I have stated my main point. By expanding their services, the USPS can meet the challenges on an even field toward the beginning of the paragraph and also again at the end of the paragraph. Notice also that in my last sentence of this paragraph, I refer back to my claim. I am making it very clear to the reader exactly how all of this information fits into my larger argument. I still have sources. They're the same sources from the original paragraph. However, in this case, I am using my sources much more efficiently. For one thing, I did not give all of the information about the name of the source. I didn't give the author. I didn't give the title. I don't have to. All I used was a lovely little parenthetical source A. That's great. That's all you have to do as well. Notice also I did not quote large sections. I paraphrased and then quoted the important part. So my source A, spotty service, is a direct quote. From source C, continue to provide universal service for Americans for decades to come, is a direct quote. And then I paraphrase again from source C. That is a much more effective way to use your sources. You have 40 minutes to write this essay. You don't have time to quote large sections of the source. You don't have time to write long wind-up sentences that don't add any meaning to your argument. Use the sources, but remember that we've all read them. You don't need to quote them for me. This is the biggest change. Notice how much commentary I have now included. I've actually used a little bit of commentary to introduce my main point. I provided an outside example, which is okay for this particular essay, as long as you use at least 3 sources. This stuff in red is the important stuff. That's the stuff that matters. So here's the side-by-side comparison. Like I said, it's not the length, it's the commentary. If you're looking at your paragraphs and they're all source and no commentary, that's your next goal to improve your writing. It should be much more commentary to your sources. Ideally, you'll have 2 sentences of commentary for every piece of evidence. That's not always possible, but that's the goal you're working for, is a 2-to-1 commentary to evidence ratio. So now, your task. You're going to take a look at your post office essay. You're going to choose your weakest paragraph, and you're going to revise it by following the pattern I just demonstrated. Delete references to yourself, delete wind-up sentences where you have a long introduction to your source, mention your subtopic at the beginning and the end of the paragraph, tie it back to your claim if possible. Don't quote entire sections of the sources. Use only the most important details and cite those sources efficiently, and have commentary that have more commentary than references to the sources. When you've completed that paragraph, you will submit it to your teacher, and they will give you some feedback on your new and improved support paragraph.